Hey guys, it's Max. We just got in the brand new M1 powered MacBook Pro, and today we are going to be comparing it against the previous Intel powered one. Now, in yesterday's video, we compared the Intel and Apple MacBook Airs, but today we are taking it to a whole nother pro level. We're going to take a look at photo editing, video editing. We're going to look at things like Logic, Xcode. We're gonna look at thermal performance with our special camera and much more. Let's start out by talking about the differences on the exterior, and they look basically identical. You can't really tell a difference except for this one little key. We have this little globe icon on there. If we hit it, we get an emoji pop up, just like on an iPad or an iPhone. Other than that, they have the same touch bars, Touch ID, the display is identical, and both have just 2 ports on the left-hand side. The Apple Silicon MacBook does support USB 4 and both support Thunderbolt 3. Now the keyboards are the same Magic keyboards, they feel great, the trackpads are the same, the webcams are still 720p, but there is new processing, so let's compare them. This is the microphone and webcam quality from the base 13-inch MacBook Pro that is powered by an Intel processor, and this is in a really nicely, professionally lit room, so this is the best quality you can expect from it. And this is the microphone and webcam quality from the new M1 powered MacBook Pro. Let me know if there is any difference in video quality or microphone quality down in the comments section below. Now, both of these are the base models. They have 8 gigabytes of RAM. Of course, the new M1 powered Macs, they are more efficient. So we're gonna see how that affects the professional apps. Now, if you wanna see a comparison between this 8 gigabyte model and a 16 gigabyte model that we have coming in, make sure to click that subscribe button and enable those notifications. The first test I'm gonna run is the SSD speed test. Apple said that the new SSDs are much faster, even though they're both 256 gigs. And as you guys can see, yeah, we definitely have a difference. So it looks like our write speed is literally twice as fast. And as far as the read speed, it is 1.5 times faster with the new M1 powered MacBooks. Now, another interesting thing is that Amazon just discounted this brand new MacBook Pro with Apple Silicon. So if you guys wanna go and check it out, we'll have some links in the video description to both of these. Now, the next performance test I'm gonna run is Uncompressing Xcode. This is a huge file with lots of little files. And I hate on Windows computers having to wait for unzipping. Macs have always been faster, but let's check out this new one. It's been a minute so far and looks like the M1 Mac it's not halfway there, but it's getting close. And it's probably more than twice as fast as the previous Intel one. Now, the reason I'm testing it is because I was compressing Xcode from the Intel Mac and it took about a half hour to compress, which blew my mind. It's almost done uncompressing and it looks like we're just over 3 minutes. Bam, there you go. That was 3 minutes and 3 seconds. This one still has a little bit to go. And I'm gonna go ahead and try to recompress it just to see how long that will take. Looks like the M1 powered Mac is gonna take about 16-17 minutes to compress Xcode, and the Intel one took about 30 minutes, maybe slightly longer. Looks like it is almost done here. All right, 5 minutes and 48 seconds compared to 3 minutes and 3 seconds. So that is a big difference in performance. So that is almost twice as fast for uncompressing and twice as fast for compressing. So some of you guys are gonna save a lot of time. And now let's compare the CPU performance using Geekbench 5. And we have our results. And man, I've seen the results from the M1s already, but this doesn't get old. As far as single core score, we went from 921 to 1726, and multi-core from 3954 to 7533. That is 87% faster in single core performance, so all the day-to-day small, easy tasks are gonna be much snappier. And as far as multi-core score, that is 90% faster. So for heavy tasks, photo editing, video editing, rendering, man, that's a huge difference. And not only that, this MacBook Pro, the new one, stayed silent, whereas the previous ones, I could hear the fans spinning up and getting louder towards the end. And now let's go ahead and test out the graphics in terms of Metal performance, which more and more apps are starting to use. The M1 Mac is done already, And this one just got to 50%, probably about 10 seconds after the new Mac finished. All right, the Intel Mac is finished, and we have a massive difference. The new M1 powered MacBook Pro is over 3 times faster in terms of metal graphics performance. Now that is a massive difference, but this isn't the biggest thing that is shocking me. The biggest shocker is that I just ran the same version of Geekbench 5 on my 16-inch MacBook Pro, and I got 22,500, barely slightly higher than this $1,300 MacBook Pro. This cost $2,400, and it has a dedicated graphics chip, the 5300M, that uses about 40 watts of power. That is crazy. So with graphics this powerful, how does it do in terms of gaming? That is where this next test comes in. I have GFX Bench, which is gonna run a gaming benchmark. Now, in yesterday's video, we actually did some gaming on the MacBook Air. So if you guys wanna see that, you can go and check it out. Of course, these new MacBook Pros, they have one extra graphics core, at least with the base CPU and GPU combo. All right, we have our results. And the Intel MacBook Pro got 21.6 frames per second compared to 77.75. So that is over 3.5 times better frame rate in terms of gaming. That is crazy. Now you guys can check out the MacBook Air video if you want to see the results for the same test. And if you're interested in more gaming tests, we're gonna have a dedicated actual gaming video for this machine, so make sure you guys are subscribed. And now let's really push these CPUs to their limits and test out thermal performance with our thermal camera. The first program I want to use is Cinebench R23. That is the old one because I want to see the performance if you're using applications that haven't yet been optimized. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit open, and you guys see it bouncing around down there? That is Rosetta translating the application so we can use it. Let's go ahead and click run, and as you guys might be able to see, the processor is listed as Virtual Apple, not the M1, and interestingly, it is labeled at 2.4 gigahertz, not 3.2. So let's go ahead and let this run and we'll check out the performance. We're about halfway through the test. It looks like the hottest spot on the Intel MacBook Pro is at 37 degrees Celsius. And oh, look at that, the color is completely different. 30 degrees Celsius on the Mac. The pointer's actually jumping to the other MacBook Pro. Let's close it up. 30 degrees Celsius on the M1 powered MacBook. A little bit more than halfway through, I started hearing the fan on the Intel MacBook Pro. It's getting to about 2/3 now, and the fan is almost at full blast here, starting to get loud. You guys can see right there, it's about to max out. Whereas the Apple Silicon powered one, it was completely silent. I'm not sure if the fan is running. Unfortunately, I can't tell yet because the software hasn't been optimized. And look at that. We are actually almost done here. We are done, and it looks like Apple's claims were absolutely correct. We have 2106 compared to 1580. So it looks like the M1 powered MacBook Pro is over 30% faster, about 33% faster when it's running an app that's not even designed for ARM. It's running an Intel-based app. And for this score, I know a lot of people aren't even testing Cinebench R23, so I wanted to check it out. It beats out even the 11th gen i7 Intel processors. The highest score I've seen for one of those is like right at 2000. And this is when it's emulating running there. So that is crazy. Let's go ahead and close these. And now let's see what happens when we're actually running an optimized app. This is Cinebench R23. And not only are we gonna see the thermal performance and the final scores, but I'm gonna take a look at the frequencies and the wattage. This is gonna be very interesting. Now, obviously we can't use Intel Power Gadget, so I have my own terminal command that I'm gonna test right now. And let's go ahead and get started. It looks like right out of the gate, we are hitting almost 40 watts on CPU power before it starts throttling down. And then on our M1 powered Mac, we are running at, let's take a look, 12.7 watts only. Let's take a look at the latest update here. That's hard to believe. Okay, 13 watts it's running at compared to hitting almost 40 and now back up to 27.5. So right there, you guys could see how this new MacBook Pro is gonna get a lot better battery life, even when you're maxing out these systems, not using just power sipping different tasks. Now, this MacBook Pro is almost at 90, now we're at 95 degrees Celsius. The fans are starting to kick up, and the M1 is completely silent. And as far as performance, this first run's almost done, whereas our Intel-based one is maybe 2/3 or so done, maybe slightly less. As far as frequencies, our MacBook is staying at right around 3.2, 3.1, and the wattage is still staying at about 28 to 25. It keeps bouncing up and down, where the M1 powered, consistent 3.2 gigahertz, very similar, but it's using 13 watts instead. Now we're at 94 degrees, our fan is maxed out. I don't know if you guys can hear that annoying whine. We usually denoise these videos, but that's a pretty big difference. And I'm curious if the M1 MacBook Pro will actually finish its second run before the Intel does its first. It looks like it won't. It's almost done here, but look how close that is. That is extremely close. Wait, there's a chance. Okay, no, it didn't, but it was just, what is that? 3-4 seconds behind, so it almost lapped it. So it's been about 7.5 minutes. The M1 has already done 5 laps and is beating this one that is on 3.5 laps or so. And as far as thermals, we're looking at about a max of 43 degrees Celsius on the Intel. You guys can see all that heat. And then on the M1, we're looking at about 38 degrees. So it is cooler. And with that, it is also, I'm gonna pick this up right here. Wait, is it completely silent? Which side's the fan on? I know there's one fan in here.
The other side, I think.
Oh, right here. No, it's on this side.
Is it on?
I feel the heat, yeah, I feel the heat.
But you can't hear it.
I can't hear it. This one, the Intel powered one, after about 2 minutes, I heard the fan. After 4 minutes, it was maxed out. And ever since that point, we're almost done, getting closer to 10 minutes. It's just running at full blast. And our CPU is at 90 degrees Celsius here. And then as far as our speeds, we're still running at 3.1 gigahertz. So the frequency is staying about even, and the wattage is about 25 or so. So definitely a much hotter, much louder machine. Our timer's finished. Cinebench R23 waits for the last run to finish, but they are both pretty close. I feel like this got through 4 runs, and this one got through 8 runs. So basically double the runs. And here we have a score, and wow, that is a pretty impressive difference. We have 3919 compared to 7734, and that is 97% faster, basically twice as fast. You guys saw in Cinebench R20, when we were running an Intel Mac, it was 33% faster, very impressive. But then with an optimized app, that is double the performance. And not only that, this happened at about 12 to 13 watts of CPU compared to 25 to 28. It also happened much cooler and completely silently, which is mind-blowing. Now let's get into some real-world tests. Let's get into video editing using Final Cut. I have the latest version 10.5 installed, and the first test that I'm gonna run is called BruceX. This is gonna see how well these laptops, both the CPU and the GPUs, can render things like graphics, color corrections, transitions, effects, all those kind of things. I have background rendering turned off. Let's go ahead and hit save. I'm gonna hit start here. Wow, the Apple Silicon's already at 50% compared to 15% on the Intel-based MacBook. Bam, that was quick. I actually missed it by a second. We're still at 39% here. All right, bam, we have a pretty dang big difference. So this MacBook Pro using the latest software, latest Final Cut took 1 minute and 7 seconds. So 67 seconds. Actually, before this update, it took 72 seconds, so it got about 5 seconds faster. Whereas the new Apple Silicon MacBook Pro took just 22 seconds. That is just over 3 times faster graphics rendering performance. And I guess Apple said 2.9 times faster, so they slightly understated it. And this is important because when you're video editing, just cutting through the footage is one thing, but once you start adding color corrections, you're starting adding LUTs, effects, titles, all that stuff, that is where the previous Intel-based MacBook Pro really slowed down. So now let's go ahead and do another test with some actual 4K footage and see how that compares. This is 4K footage from Sony cameras, footage that a lot of people edit. I'm gonna go ahead and hit play, and right away you guys can see how that is stuttering. Look at the little time code here. It is just skipping around because we're dropping a lot of frames. Our graphics card is completely maxed out. And so you guys could see that we're having a really tough time. Let's go ahead and see how our new M1 powered Mac does. Man, as smooth as butter. Look at that. Perfectly smooth timing right here. Not a single dropped frame. We're using 74% of the graphics, only 33% of the CPU. No issues whatsoever. So if previously you had to buy a 16-inch MacBook Pro to edit video, but you wanted the smaller size, well, now you could sell that, buy one of these, and make some money while you're at it. So next, let's go ahead and export this 5-minute project and see what kind of difference we get. Okay, this is just funny. We're at 20% here, 21% now, 5% here, 23% now. This is still at 5%. This is just embarrassing. While we wait, I want to see if we have any differences in terms of RAM. Let me open up my activity monitor. Looks like on the M1 we have 7 gigs used compared to about 6, but it also has less swap used. So both of them are using a lot of RAM, basically using all of it. I'm very curious to see what the difference we're gonna have when we test out our same MacBook Pro, but it has 16 gigs, how much faster that will be. So enable those notifications if you guys wanna see it. And we're almost right here in time. We're at 97%. This is not even at 25% yet. All right, I lapped the timer. Let's wait for this one. Okay, finally, we're at 99% done. That took way too long. I kept leaving and I kept coming back and checking up on it. 12 minutes and 57 seconds. Take a guess how long the Apple Silicon MacBook took in the comments below. Pause this video for now. It took 3 minutes and 19 seconds. That is 3.9 times faster. Massive difference. And that performance is nearing or maybe even beating the 16-inch MacBook Pro. I think now I absolutely have to compare this 13-inch to the 16-inch base model. Now, of course, we are using Final Cut. It is really well optimized. And so if you're interested in DaVinci Resolve, which does have a beta for ARM, the Apple Silicon Macs, and Premiere Pro, which is not yet optimized, who knows how long that will take, I'm gonna be doing a comparison, diving really deep into video editing on my personal channel. I'll go ahead and leave a link down in the video description if you guys wanna check it out. Next, I'm gonna jump into photo editing, but first I wanna mention battery life. Of course, Apple Silicon not only is much faster, it's a lot more efficient, and I just noticed that I'm gonna be needing to plug in this Intel Mac in. It has 19% battery, and our M1 powered Mac has 50%. Now here is the real kicker. When we started this video, the Intel Mac was 100% charged. The ARM one, the Apple Silicon, was at 80%. So this started at a 20% disadvantage. After we've been running all these tests, we've actually been running even more tests and downloads and installs on this. It's at 50 compared to 19. That is incredible. Getting into photo editing, this is Lightroom Classic. I'm gonna go ahead and go over to the develop page here. And one thing to note is that this is not an ARM optimized app. We're using Rosetta to run this. This is an Intel based app. So let's see what performance we get while we're waiting for Adobe to optimize these. So here's the exposure slider. That is insanely smooth. And let's test it on this Intel one. I don't know if it's me. I mean, I don't want to be biased. Okay, I'm not gonna say it's less smooth, but both are smooth there. Let's go ahead and try to punch in. Wow, okay. Now let's go ahead and switch photos. Okay, do you see the M1 powered Mac?
Faster.
Slightly faster, but it is faster. And it's running off of Rosetta. It literally is faster. I was expecting it to be slower, but still usable. Look at that. Oh, is this one slowing down? I don't know if its RAM is getting full. Oh no, it's getting hot. The CPU is getting hot, so the performance is getting worse. We'll do a quick brush test here. We get a little bit of lag at the start. Let's try on the M1 powered. Also, slight lag right when we start. But then after that, look at that. Basically perfectly smooth. Okay, so we have 50 42 megapixel images here. Let's go ahead and export these and see what difference we get. All right, the new Mac is almost done. It looks like it's done. Okay, bam, right there. This still has a little bit to go, but after about 20% or so, the fans kicked up and they're just running at full blast. Okay, and we are done with the Intel-based Mac. We'll let it cool down here. So the Intel-based Mac took 4 minutes and 8 seconds to export 50 of these images. The M1 Apple Silicon powered MacBook Pro took 2 minutes and 53 seconds. That is 43% faster, huge improvement, but keep this in mind. Lightroom Classic right now is not running normally, it's not optimized, it's running as an Intel app with Rosetta. Now, along with that, I want to mention 2 things. First off, we know that Lightroom is really limited by RAM. For example, our 8-core brand new 2020 iMac, that took 3 minutes and 55 seconds with 8 gigs of RAM. So this MacBook Pro wasn't that much slower, even though it had half the cores. Now, how in the world is the M1 powered MacBook Pro running it so much faster, also with 8 gigs of RAM? My thought is that the RAM that's in here, the unified RAM as Apple calls it, is just way more efficient being right there in that same chipset. And now for those of you guys that work with music, we're gonna test out Logic. We have a benchmark here with a bunch of tracks. We're gonna start out with 80 different tracks enabled and see how these stack up. Let's go ahead and hit play here. Okay, well, the M1 powered Mac is going. This one overloaded. So this little test is 30 seconds long. I'm gonna let it run. That's at 84%. And I'll disable some tracks on the Intel powered Mac. So it looks like the M1 is handling 80 tracks just fine. It's almost done playing through. And the Intel one is even overloading with 10 tracks. Now Vadim actually tested this out on the MacBook Air with the Intel processor. That got 8. No, don't tell me it can't do 8. Okay, let's try that again. Is it because the CPU is hot? I don't know why it keeps crashing on me. Maybe there's some background task running and that's why it's not being able to handle 6 or 7. That was 4 right there. Technically, if everything's running smooth, you don't have anything in the background, maybe you can handle about 10 tracks. Obviously with the M1 powered Mac, with Logic optimized for Apple Silicon, it's running insanely fast. It just did 80. Let's try 100 on the M1 powered Mac. So far, oh, okay, it did crash there. The MacBook Air handled 94 tracks with the M1 processor, same processor. So this one couldn't do 100. I have 94 set right here, and I'm sure it can pull off the 94. This is interesting. I'm actually hearing the fan for the first time, maybe because this one's getting quiet now. Yeah, I didn't hear it before. Video editing, I guess we're pushing this to its limits. You can safely say 94, 95 tracks in Logic compared to 6 to 10. The 2020 5K 8-core iMac handled 125, and this MacBook Pro is not there, but very close, running on battery power. That is impressive. And now for all of the coders out there, we are gonna compare running Xcode. I have a benchmark right here and it has its own timer. I'm gonna go ahead and open it up. All right, and now I'm gonna hit Command B to run. And let's test this one too. All right, let's go. Interesting, the new MacBook Pro, even though we started it later, is a fair bit ahead right now, and both laptops are maxed out with 100% CPU usage. The Intel-based MacBook Pro's fans are ramping up. I can hear them now, and it's at 93 degrees Celsius. All right, unfortunately, the build failed on our new Mac, and it also failed on the old Mac. Now, Maxim Eremenko made this benchmark for us. We've been using it with the older Macs. Maybe it's just the new version of Xcode. Something needs to be fixed or changed. We don't do any coding, so we're gonna go ahead and contact him and see if there's an updated benchmark that we can run for you guys, and then we will revisit this. But as far as just how fast it was moving through, we saw that the M1 MacBook Pro was moving through much quicker until it reached that point where they ended up both failing. All right, guys, let me know what you think.
Death of Intel.
Death of Intel.
Sell your Intel stock.
Maybe you do want to sell your Intel stock. This was an experience. The MacBook Air video was great. This one we dived much deeper into pro apps, and a couple things really surprised me. One, of course, the performance is awesome in the Apple Silicon optimized applications. On top of that, for the applications that haven't even been updated yet, it still was way faster. So our previous thoughts of, if you need applications for Intel, you're a professional worker, you want to wait maybe a year, it doesn't seem so. It is just working so well. Nothing like the Windows ARM devices that we tested. That is incredible. And on top of that, the thermal performance is insane. We're going from loud fans, 95, 100 degrees Celsius, to completely silent. We don't know the temperatures yet as far as the internal CPU temps. Hopefully some of the software will get updated. We will revisit that in our review. But it is just incredible. And now I really have just two thoughts. First off, if the thermal performance is this good, how is this MacBook Pro gonna compare to the MacBook Air that's also M1 powered? That's less expensive. Some of you guys like the design better. I'm really excited to compare this MacBook Pro against the MacBook Air. That's gonna be a video we're gonna work on. And then also, what if we have 16 gigs of RAM in this machine? How are some of those professional apps going to perform? So we will be working on that video today. Make sure you guys have those notifications enabled because we have some great content coming up. Thank you guys for watching, and once again, you can pick up one of these on Amazon discounted right now. It's crazy that they already have a sale on it. Go check out the links in the video description. Click that circle above if you guys want to subscribe, and if you want to see another great video, especially how this does in terms of video editing in Premiere Pro, DaVinci Resolve, we have it over there, as well as our buyer's guide. Thank you guys for watching. This has been Max, and I'll see you in the next video.